So, back in January of 2026, something happened that pushed the transatlantic alliance right to the edge. And it wasn't a war, it wasn't some big treaty falling apart. Nope. It was about an island up in the Arctic and a bunch of leaked text messages. Let's get into it and see how a strange push for Greenland turned into this massive global showdown. And this is where it all blew up. A private text from one world leader to another that was then leaked by the president himself on Truth Social. I mean, think about that. This wasn't just some casual chat. This was the French president trying to pump the brakes on a really aggressive and, frankly, kind of bizarre American plan to acquire Greenland from Denmark. Leaking it was a move designed to embarrass an ally, and boy, did it ignite a firestorm. So, you have to be asking, how on earth does a text message about Greenland spiral into a full-blown global crisis? Well, to get that, you really have to understand the new foreign policy that was driving everything in the White House. This was a different era, with a very distinct worldview that was totally reshaping America's place in the world. You know, this quote from Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, it basically tells you everything you need to know. It's the whole philosophy in a nutshell. We're talking about a foreign policy that's all about the unapologetic use of hard power. Things like traditional diplomacy and old alliances, well, they're suddenly seen as secondary, if they're even relevant at all. And this new philosophy got a name, the Monroe Doctrine. It was like a super aggressive reboot of the old Monroe Doctrine from the 1800s, the one that told European powers to stay out of the Americas. This new version, though, was all about reasserting American dominance everywhere. And for a lot of people, this was a massive break from that post-World War II rules-based system that America had, ironically, spent decades building. So what did that actually look like in the real world? Well, for one, alliances became purely transactional. You're only as good as the last deal you made. Hard power, like economic threats, took the place of talking things out. Support for big international groups like the UN, that was being dismantled. And all of this, of course, really strained relationships with longtime allies. And critics pointed out it was creating a power vacuum that rivals like Russia and China were more than happy to step into. Which, you guessed it, brings us right back to Greenland. The island basically became the first big, real-world test of the Monroe Doctrine. It was this expansionist theory being applied to a fellow NATO member. The goal itself was simple and just incredibly bold. Take control of Greenland. So why Greenland? Well, in this century, it's a strategic gold mine. It's packed with rare earth minerals, it sits on top of future Arctic shipping routes, and it's a key spot for military power in the north. But here's the thing that made it so shocking. The target wasn't an enemy. It was Denmark, a treaty ally. And the methods were just as wild as the goal. The administration was using social media as a weapon, posting memes and doctored pictures like this one. It totally blurred the line between official government policy and just online trolling. It put allies in a totally impossible spot. I mean, seriously, how are you supposed to write a diplomatic response to a meme? And that leads us to the most shocking move of all, the decision to leak the private, personal messages of other world leaders. This was turning diplomacy into a tool for public shaming. So here's the full text from Macron. Just look at the tone. He starts by finding common ground. We are totally in line on Syria. See that? Then he expresses his confusion, but he does it politely, not aggressively. And then he offers a way out, a path forward. This is diplomacy 101. It's how it's supposed to work. But the whole leak thing kind of backfired. The public, like this person on Reddit, they didn't see weakness in Macron's text. They saw a calm, reasonable leader trying to talk sense to someone totally unpredictable. So in the attempt to make Macron look desperate, the White House kind of just made him look like the only adult in the room. Now, the leaks also showed something else really important, a big split in Europe. So you have Macron on one side choosing polite but really firm resistance. But then you have other leaders like NATO's Mark Rutte taking a very different path. His text was way more accommodating, promising to find a way forward. It showed that Europe was really struggling to come up with a single unified way to handle this. The fallout from all this was, as you can imagine, immediate and pretty severe. The whole Greenland gambit plus the text leaks, it pushed the transatlantic alliance into its most dangerous and fragile state since the Second World War. For example, when Macron said no to joining a new Trump-led global group, the response wasn't a phone call. It was basically economic warfare, a threat of a 200% tariff on French wine. Now, this wasn't really about trade. It was punishment for a NATO ally who wouldn't get in line. Macron's response, which he gave at the World Economic Forum, really captured the deepest fears that Europe had about this new reality. He didn't frame it as just some policy disagreement. No, he framed it as a dangerous shift away from international law and toward a world where the only thing that matters is raw power. And Europe's actions totally backed up those strong words. First, the EU calls an emergency summit just to talk about Greenland. Then, in this really powerful symbolic move, France actually sends its own troops to Greenland to stand with Denmark. The post-war alliance was, no exaggeration, officially on the brink. All right, so what's the takeaway from all this? Let's break down the bottom line of this truly unprecedented moment in modern diplomacy. What the Greenland crisis really did was reveal a clear four-step playbook for this new type of foreign policy. Step 1, state a really aggressive goal. Step 2, use social media to create a spectacle and apply pressure. Step 3, threaten your allies with economic pain. And Step 4, treat every alliance like it's just a business deal with no history attached. At the end of the day, this was never really just about Greenland. It was a demonstration. It was a blueprint showing the entire world a new American foreign policy, one where historic partnerships are only valuable as long as they serve an immediate transactional need. And that leaves us with this final, really big question. For almost 80 years, the alliance between America and Europe has been a cornerstone of global stability. But if that partnership is now just another deal on the table, what happens on the day someone decides it's no longer a good one?